Ladies and gentlemen, angry Americans around the country and around the world, everything is on fire. And who better to talk to than our favorite firefighting hero? The great and powerful Rob Serra is back on Angry Americans. Welcome back, my friend.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me. It's been a while.
It has been a while. You were telling me earlier you're an OG of AA.
Yeah, right? I think I was in two of the first, I don't know, 10, 11 episodes. Not bad.
You were episode 2.
Yeah.
We didn't even have like the full format of first car question and all that. So we got some making up to do.
Yeah.
And
let's do it.
And for folks who are listening to the first time, you're going to be really in for a treat. Rob's an incredible person, an incredible hero, an incredible dad. He's also got an incredible room. If you're watching on video, you can see it. If you're listening, you can go to angryamericans.us to see it. But Rob, can you tell folks what's over your shoulders in this like firefighting den of dreams?
Well, it's my guest room, but it's a little buffy. Over this shoulder is my FDNY hockey team jersey, as featured on NHL Network last week.
Oh, we got to talk about that.
Yeah. Behind this shoulder is a painting done by my friend, Captain Mike McCaffrey of the FDNY, and one of my fire helmets. And then I got a little Hamlet quote in there, if you could read it.
I can't read it, but
yeah, is that right?
I'm impressed that firefighter Rob is quoting Hamlet.
Well, I was an English major and, focused on Shakespeare. I got Hamlet tattooed on my arm, so.
You do?
I do, yeah.
What is the Hamlet tattoo on your arm?
Well, it's actually Fireman Hamlet. You may recognize him. It's the to be or not to be speech.
Wow.
And I got my Statue of Liberty, Ophelia, on the background.
Wow. How many hours? How many hours of work is that?
I kind of lost track. My friend who did it is a fireman, so we just basically watch movies and rap while he does it. So
that's amazing.
The last time he actually had to stop, he got tired. So
wow, we got to bring Scott Campbell back. I don't know if you heard that episode with the great Scott Campbell, the tattoo artist, but we got to bring him back on the show. Maybe we can get you guys together. I can't talk about this room without recognizing there's also a bed in it. So is this like after you become a firefighter, you're consummated by going into this room or something? Like what what's this all about here, man?
Well, it is part office, but it's part guest room, and I use it basically for the nights where I can't make it upstairs. My legs are bothering me, or I don't want to annoy my wife all night with my shaking, so I camp out in my buffer room.
All right. Well, I want to talk about all these things, but like to level set, you and I were just talking about something I think we need to talk about more often on this show and more often in this country. It's stressful out there, man. Like, especially for those of us with little kids. I think it's stressful for everybody, but especially for those of us with little kids. Like, you were nice enough to do a question from my 5-year-old before we got started, and he asked you what the biggest vehicle in your firehouse was, and you told him something that I don't even know how to pronounce.
A tower ladder.
A tower ladder?
The ones with the big buckets that go.
Oh, and he knew exactly what that was.
Well, he knew, yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea what that was. But it's the truck that goes up to the skyscrapers, right?
Yeah.
So you're a guy who's been in a lot of shit, but this is a very crazy time, right? Like, I got little ones, you got little ones. You said you had 3 people going to school in the rooms next to you right now, right?
Yeah, they're on 3 different floors, which is why I'm on my phone right now, because I'm the odd man out with the computers. But I got Linda's in the attic, Francesca's in her bedroom, and Vincent's in the dining room, and my wife is the hall monitor going up and down the stairs.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we haven't talked to you since the pandemic started. It was about 1.5 years ago since we really went deep, and a lot's going on. So I want to talk about wildfires. I want to talk about 9/11. I want to talk about just your view of the landscape. Maybe we'll talk a little hockey and football, but at a starting point, the thing I've been asking everybody is how are you and where are you? So tell folks where you are and what this 6 months of the pandemic so far has been like for you, man.
I'm still in Staten Island, New York. Still in my house. I've gone out a few times. Haven't really been indoors anywhere. To be honest, the only two places I went to my friend's funeral last week, firefighter Chris Lowe, and I went to my mother-in-law's on 9/11. We stayed outside. But besides that, this is it, man. I've been in the house. Haven't been feeling that great anyway, so I don't know how much going out I would have been doing. But with that said, I'm just being cautious because I don't want to feel worse. So,
Can you talk to folks about, and I think it's really important to talk to you because you've been, there are folks that are kind of taking this different levels of focus and intensity, right? And for different reasons. But for folks who maybe didn't hear the first interview or aren't understanding the severity of what this environment is like, why are you going to such lengths for yourself?
Because of my underlying issues, obviously associated with 9/11. I have respiratory issues. I have autoimmune issues. So I'm highly compromised as it is, and getting a respiratory virus doesn't seem like something that would be fun. I know a lot of the 9/11 responders that get it have a very tough time, even if they didn't have apparent underlying issues. I feel like the virus kind of accelerates them. We've had several deaths to COVID, but obviously with 9/11 being the underlying issues. So for me, I just, I try to treat it like everyone has it. I understand the case for, living your life and all that, but I'm not really living my life anymore. My life is already restricted because of all those issues. So for me, I've told you before, my main mission right now is to be here for my children. And going to the store or going to all the things that I could do for myself, just unimportant. I'd rather be in the other room than be in a hospital bed or whatever. So for me, it's an easy decision to just bunker down because I don't know how long I'm going to be here anyway. So I certainly don't want to accelerate the things that may kill me anyway. So
I want to get like an army of people to stand around your house to guard you. Like, how the Rolling Thunder guys would come out in the motorcycles with the flags and sometimes guard funerals against like crazy protesters, right? I feel like we need to wrap you, and Norman Lear was on this show. There are a couple other folks that are really so important to the country that we got to help keep you safe. But I also, man, I just want to tell you how much respect I have. I know how much discipline it takes, how much hard work it takes just to keep your family safe, and you're doing it for them. And that's why I love you, because you're a hero who's always selfless, and part of why I wanted to talk to you now, because I think it's an inspiration. I had a rough week. I think a lot of folks are having a rough time now. It's like September is kind of, I think it's when a lot of shit's coming around, right? Like September is where the PPE money, the PPP money's running out, the PPE is running out. School's starting back up. It's people are tired. It's been 6 months. I feel like September is going to be hard, and October might be harder, and November might be even harder. And we need, perspective. And I got to tell you, man, I was like, shit, I got no problems compared to, what Rob's dealing with and what his family's dealing with and what the people close to you dealing with. So a lot of respect, man, especially this time of year. I mean, you mentioned it, the 2 times you've gone out, where, to a funeral and on 9/11. I want to talk about the impact that the virus has had on 9/11 first responders, but I want to we passed 9/11. I want to get your thoughts on this 9/11. Your first day on the job with the FDNY was on 9/11, right? And your brother's a firefighter, your family's, so involved. You're on the foundation, on the board at the Pfeiffer Foundation. 19-year anniversary 9/11. What are your reflections,
Rob? Well, this year was obviously a bit different. I wasn't able to do the things that I usually do, for my own mental health, which is go see the guys, have a couple of adult beverages, and go to the ceremony at night and listen to the amazing FDNY Emerald Society pipe band. I couldn't do any of that this year. But as I've told you, my wife lost her father, Vincent Litto, on 9/11. He was a vice president at Cantor Fitzgerald. So I was able to spend the day with her and her family, which is something I haven't done in a long time. And it definitely gave me a different perspective, to see, it's 19 years later, and this family, they were all sharing their stories about that day, things that I've heard, but it's probably been about 10 years, things that we don't talk about all year long. And they would, just everyone basically was telling when they finally realized that he wasn't coming home, and to see the vast number of people in this backyard over losing one person, 19 years later, that, I've said it before, that 9/11 is going to affect generations. And I was seeing it, my kids were sitting there watching the TV for the first time, asking questions like, why did this happen? My daughter asked me, you're going to love this one. She asked me if I would be okay if the government didn't lie to us. My 11-year-old daughter asked me that. We had to explain to her that people like me and you, who were there in the first few days, it wouldn't have mattered. But, just that my kids are asking those questions now, and we have to have those tough conversations, I think it was good for me. It was good to hear the other perspective, because I was there trying to save people like her dad, and to know that there were people at home, watching TV with bated breath, waiting for the phone to ring, knowing that we were giving them hope, it makes me feel a little bit better about what we were doing, even though we didn't really get to give many people the phone calls that they wanted. So I think it was kind of cathartic for me, and I'm actually glad that I spent the day with them instead of going to the city, because I think we lose sight of that especially me, because I'm dealing with, I guess the fallout would be the proper word, of 9/11. They're still dealing with the singular moment of that day, and what they lost, and the years and memories that they lost. Kind of rambling on there, but it's hard to explain to people that didn't go through it, to watch a loved one die on live TV. That's got to be rough. I can't imagine what they all felt like when those towers fell down, in the middle of a news broadcast.
Your rambles are the best kind of rambles. Really, as you take us through history and you take us through what you're experiencing. Did you and your wife know each other on 9/11?
No.
Her father was in the tower and you were on the ground. And
right.
Here we are 19 years later, and the two of you are married and connected to that moment in such a different and powerful way.
Yeah. And ironically, we lived on the same street on 9/11, at opposite ends. So about a mile apart, but we had never met. We didn't know each other, but we were that close. I honestly, I drove past her house on 9/11 on my way to the firehouse to, she's on my route, so I drove past her house on my way to ground zero. So, if you believe in that kind of stuff, there were a lot of signs there,
Yeah. I mean, I try to reflect on how, some good came out of it. And I know I wouldn't have met my wife if not for that day, because the series of events led me to Iraq to found IVA. And then I meet my wife who, wants to support, but it never would have happened if not for 9/11. So I do try to find those bright spots. I think it was last year on 9/11, you were at my house and we ended the night after quite a few adult beverages of me riding your scooter through Lower Manhattan. Right? Was that last year or the year before? Was that last year or the year before?
That was last year.
Shit, man. It's all kind of blurring together for me, right?
Well, I still have the recording, so you might want to be nice to me.
You might have to repost that. Now the streets are kind of empty like they were on 9/11 all the time, right? I mean, the streets are so different. The city's so different. The country's so different. But let me ask you something. So was it Linda or Francesca that asked you the question about the government?
Linda.
So Linda asks you if the government hadn't lied to us and we knew how bad it was, right? Would we have still gone down there? And I love your answer, and I share that sentiment. I struggle to explain this to Ryder, who's 5 now, and we make it a celebration of firefighters, and I try to explain to him, as best I can, age appropriate, right? Like what this day is all about. I haven't even gotten to the baby yet, but this was the first year I felt like an old guy. I felt like and maybe also I felt like people were paying attention more, maybe because they were all in their home. It was both things. They were paying attention more because of the pandemic and they were home and they had to, but they also maybe weren't as sensitive to it because they feel like everybody's life sucks now. And they don't, I think the sympathy well is a little bit dried up. Right. But it still comes back around in powerful and important ways. And now you and I and others have to be kind of the keepers of the flame. We have to teach the lessons and the history in the same way the older generation did for Pearl Harbor or when Kennedy got shot, right? We have to explain that. But let me ask you a straight up question, man. Everybody says never forget. You and I have been in this fight for a while now. Do you feel like the country forgot?
I don't know. I think it'd be hard for me to be the judge of that, just because people like you who've put me out there. So I get a lot of messages and a lot of I get a lot of support from around the country. But it certainly would seem that way. For all the reasons you just said. That there's a lot of shit going on. And I've said that from the beginning. I understand. Even 5 years ago, I was saying this. I understand that other people have shit going on in their lives. People go through tragedy all the time. It's hard to not care, but it's hard to be as outraged as we are about 9/11 and the way we were treated if you didn't go through it yourself, because you might have had your own relatives die from cancer or murdered or in an accident or whatever. So it's hard. I get that point, but it's the other stuff that I think they should care about. The things that should make them angry is that the government did lie to us, and that 19 years later, they're still fucking with us, and they're still withholding funding, even after everything we did to get it. They're still using us as a political football. And people should be outraged by that, because if they're going to do it to us, the people that they plastered all over the news, that these congressmen have plastered all over the walls in their office and claim we're the reasons that inspired them to join the military and blah, 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 and to serve and all this. If they're going to use us for that purpose, but then in the same breath, essentially shit all over us and let us suffer and die, how does that bode well for anyone? How does it bode well for how they're going to treat any tragedy or any first responder or the military, as we're seeing now with the burn pits and Agent Orange, which has been 40 something years? And it's just a sign of what they're capable of and what they'll do when they think they can get away with it, when people will just let it pass as just another day. 9/11, yeah, everyone says never forget, and it's become like an afterthought and a joke for people like Daniel Tosh, who if you watch his show, half his things he throws in a never forget, and we know what he's doing. Kind of trivializing what never forget really is supposed to mean. For me, yeah, I'm never going to forget because I can't walk. It's hard for me to forget what happened on 9/11 when I look in my kids' faces or see my wife. So it's easy for me to say never forget. But these other people need to realize that it's more important for them to not forget, because it can happen again. And it will happen again if we keep allowing, politicians to use us as you didn't ask me what makes me angry, but I think we just found it. I think it's hypocrisy, and it's here's the thing. Military members, first responders, we have this thing inside of us, this desire to do good, right? We just want to do the right thing, as Ray would say. And there are people out there who take advantage of that, and they know it, which is why they knew that they didn't have to tell us the truth about the air at Ground Zero. You know why? Because firemen are going to go down there, police officers, EMTs are going to go down there to find their loved ones and to clean up their city, no matter what you say, because it was the right thing to do, right? So they knew that they could get away with saying whatever they want and get Wall Street open and blah, 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 because they knew that at the end of the day, we're always going to do the right thing. And that's what really pisses me off, is these people who take advantage of that trait. We should be, as you were saying before about carrying the light. That's the light. That's the light that's getting put out right now. you know, not not literally with half the country burning, but that's the light that we're losing, because we are, we're trivializing things like never forget, when we should be propping up those heroes who climbed 100 flights of stairs knowing that they weren't coming back down. I can't imagine that. Could you imagine walking up those stairs after the other building already collapsed? But these guys did it. We have the recordings. They did it because it was the right thing to do. It had nothing to do with the fact that they were getting a paycheck. What is that paycheck? You know what it is. It's nothing. It's nothing compared to Bill de Blasio's paycheck. Right? He could take a week off without pay and not feel it. So, a fireman can't do that. You know what a week's pay would do to a fireman? He'd lose his house. So they're never going to understand that. They're never going to understand that, of doing the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing. And I think when people say never forget, that's what they shouldn't forget. Forget about the buildings, forget about what happened, forget about this, literally what happened on 9/11. That's fine. Go ahead, forget it. But don't forget about the sheer goodness and humanity that was shown that day. Besides the evil that was shown, that's what we can't forget. We can't forget that there are good people, and that there are people who are willing to die for you and me, and that's a good thing. So we shouldn't downplay that. We shouldn't trivialize it, and we shouldn't use that trait, for politics and to gain money and to gain power or get elected. Because at the end of the day, we're only hurting society, because there's going to be less people to help, because people aren't going to want to do it eventually. You're going to run out of helpers. All right, rant over.
Amen. I love your rants. That's why I'm honored to know you, because they ground us, and especially right now. I mean, I want to drill deeper on one thing that folks may not be tracking on. So in the middle of the last couple of weeks, there was the story about how people have forgotten. And you've been great over the last year or two when members of Congress would vote against the extension of the Zadroga bill. You'd find a tweet where they said they supported 9/11 and never forget. And you went back at them and said, hey, never forget, right? And so many of them did forget. And we see it almost every year. Jon Stewart had to bang on the drum and run in front of every TV camera to get the Zadroga bill extended last summer, even when Rand Paul and others tried to block it. Now Trump wants to take credit for it. In my view, he didn't do shit except sign it, and we all know that. But here we are, another year, and there was another fight to be had because they were fucking with the money again. Can you just explain to folks the story, that if they weren't in New York, maybe they didn't see it or they weren't tracking on Trump, what happened, in the last week that it's another example of how they forgot?
Sure. I'll break it down in firefighter terms. Essentially what happened is they used money that was meant for the FDNY World Trade Center Health Program, which is almost, it's not as big as the World Trade Center Health Program. It just covers the FDNY, but it's integral. I mean, it is what the World Trade Center Health Program was based on. It's basically the gold standard for dealing with the tragedies. I mean, the health effects of toxic exposure. It's what they're using now as the template for burn pits. Dr. Kelly started it. I think in October of 2001, she was on top of it and started this program. So essentially what the government did was they withheld over $4 million over the case of 4 years, over the course of 4 years, from that program, which goes towards cancer treatments, anything from annual medicals, the stuff that you get in the other program, the same things, medications, probably doctors and nurses pay, I would imagine. They withheld $4 million of that money. It seems like they're trying to say it was a tax ID mix-up, but it seems like they were using that money to collect debts owed to the government by the city of New York, which is a separate entity from the FDNY. And we're affiliated with the city of New York, but the FDNY health program is not Bill de Blasio. Certainly not. So that's what happened. So basically, we got caught in the pissing match between de Blasio and the Trump administration. which, as I said in my tweet last night, 9/11 has been a pissing match between politicians for 19 years. And it's the first responders and the survivors are the only ones getting wet. We're always, on the short end of that stick. And we're always going to be used as a political football, which is why I personally didn't even comment on the story. I wasn't surprised. I think we knew getting a permanent bill signed last year didn't mean that this kind of bullshit was going to go away. They're always going to find a way to never let a good tragedy go to waste, right? Well, they're going to get their money's worth out of 9/11.
And they never, it's amazing how long it takes from the time you and I see it to the time somebody in a position of power does something about it, right? And usually we see it a couple weeks after it happened, whatever the it is, right? And then we elevate it. We scream like hell and hope that folks in the media and in government will respond. And I don't know if even now Trump has even said anything about it. But I mean, it's one of those things where, the commander in chief or the mayor or the governor can jump in and fix it. And instead of finger pointing, they can say, I'm going to take responsibility. These guys did that on 9/11 and gals did this on 9/11. I'm going to do the same thing. But instead, to your point, it becomes this pissing match, and it becomes amazingly difficult for us to get these simple things fixed. And that takes us into the new fight, right? Which is not new for us, but burn pits. We've talked about it on the show. I've been fighting on it since I got home in 2004. We started seeing effects in 2006. Somebody told me that advocacy is not a big bang, it's a drumbeat. And we started this drumbeat a long time ago. I mean, I remember going on TV the first time and saying, let me tell you what a burn pit is, right? And that's how it works. Like, that's how advocacy works. You educate people, and then you convert people, and over time you move people, and then you get change. But it takes a long time. And now everybody's on burn pits, right? Like now it's popular. Awesome. Right. That's victory for us. I am not mad at him. I'm happy to see that. But it takes that thing, right? That one pop. And I thought it was going to be Joe Biden admitting publicly that he thought burn pits were what caused Beau Biden's cancer. And for folks, if you're new to this, burn pits are toxin exposures. They take a bunch of medical, military waste, put it in a big pit, set it on fire for sometimes weeks or months. And we all stood around and breathed it in. And the impacts, long-term health impacts, respiratory issues, cancers are similar to what we saw after 9/11. So I've been saying for a decade and a half, the best reference point is 9/11. And we're going to need a similar response in terms of the Zadroga bill to handle all the long-term health impacts. But we had Joe Biden say, maybe my son died from this. And it never really bubbled up. Maybe now it will. But it took Jon Stewart again. And Jon Stewart, God bless him, like if that dude, pulled over on the side of the road to pick a flower, everybody would cover it, right? I mean, anything he does, people will cover. And he knows that. And for a while, maybe he was a little reluctant. Now he's like, fuck it. I'm going to do it. Because nobody else will. I wish he was the mayor of New York. I wish he was the president. But in the meantime, he is, our best ally, our best weapon, because he can amplify stuff like only he can. So we saw that this week. Now everybody's talking about burn pits. At least we got their attention for a minute. But you've been in rooms with John. You walked the halls and you rode the halls in a wheelchair. What do you think about that moment? And take us behind the scenes. You did that before when you were on my radio show with John, but his outrage is grounded in a righteousness, because even Jon Stewart gets blown off, and they fuck with him too, right? Yeah. But what's your reaction? That was my rant. But what's your reaction to this turn of events where it seems like we have kind of a tipping point and John's out in front again?
Behind the scenes, ironically, a lot of times we would hear fraud as their main concern when it had to do with 9/11. And to this date, there's been 0 cases of fraud within the 9/11 health program. However, there's been fraud perpetrated by the government in executing the 9/11 health program. So that should tell you all you need to know. As Trey Gowdy recently said, who I can't believe I'm quoting, but in his 8 years in Washington, he never saw anybody change their mind. And I'm not convinced that Jon Stewart or me or Ray or John Field or anybody changed anybody's mind. I think we elevated the drumbeat, to maybe a bit of a Dave Grohl. And and basically made it where they couldn't ignore it, and made it where the public was as outraged as we were. And I think that's what Jon Stewart does, is he takes our voices. He fed off of our anger because he would talk to us. He's a regular guy, and he would see what we're going through, and it would piss him off, and it should have. And he knew he had the microphone, and he knows he's got people's attention. But at the end of the day, he's not changing anybody's mind. I don't think there's a person in Washington who doesn't think that Beau Biden died from burn pits. How could you not? I mean, we have 19 years of evidence of what these toxins do to you. And I just feel like it's just another case of our leaders leading from behind. They wait to see which way the wind's blowing. Bad metaphor for burn pits, but they wait to see, how outraged people are. And that's what makes them act. It's not the right thing, because if it was the right thing, Vietnam vets still wouldn't be fighting the VA over Agent Orange, right? If it was the right thing to do, it wouldn't even be a question.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think, I'm glad John's back in the game. He's done with his movie and he's ready to roll. And I'm happy for that. But, I don't think he's going to change anybody's mind there. I think all he's going to do is embarrass them and shame them into action. And, as you know, shame and money are the only things that move the needle in Washington, right?
That's true. That's true. I mean, you kind of clear, you remind me of that all the time. I mean, Jon Stewart, Trump likes to talk about the military a lot, and he talks about the Moab, the mother of all bombs. And then Don Trump Jr. likes to talk about this massive bomb that, clears a ridiculous amount of space, right, that we have in our disposal. Like Jon Stewart is a Moab of shame, right? Like when you drop Jon Stewart on, he shames the shit out of everybody in a way that nobody else can, in an effective way, powerful way. And I'm so thankful he's out there. I mean, I think we're also at a point where so many of us have died. You started the hashtag My Friends Are Dying. We're so tired on some levels. We're worried about our kids. We're not sure they're going to get taken. It used to be, hey, we're not sure you're going to take care of us. Now it's, we're not sure you're going to take care of our kids. And that creates a new sense of urgency for me. Like my mom listens to this show. Hi, Ma. I love you.
Hi, Mom.
And I'm sorry, but like I went on Morning Joe last week, and they asked me to ask a question to the lawyer, and I basically said, I'm gonna die probably from either. I said probably from 9/11 shit. I'm probably gonna die from that. Either it'll be 9/11 shit or it'll be burn pits. Maybe both. Like I got the double whammy, right? And other guys and gals do too. But that's probably what's gonna kill me. Maybe I'll get hit by a car or a lion will eat me or something. But I said that in public, and I think my mom called me in tears, and she's like, I'm just sad about this. And I kind of forget sometimes because I do this so often in public how it impacts the people around me. But we have a new urgency because we're worried about our kids. And I go to that 9/11 health registry every year. I remember when it was kind of rinky dink and then it was smooth, and now it's rocking, and we need it now more than ever. But I want to come back to one really important point. Can you give us an update? So many 9/11 first responders have died. One died on 9/11. We were losing at some point maybe 24 a week, and now we're losing a lot of them to COVID. As best as you're able, can you give us a quick update on how many people are dying or what the situation is? You said you went to a funeral. Can you put people in those shoes a little bit? Because this is a death toll I don't think most Americans understand. It's kind of like veteran suicide. It's like some other issues. We're just losing brothers and sisters every day. Rachel Maddow told me once that she thought that veteran suicide, the only comparable she could think of was AIDS, because it was when, something came through and took a lot of people before their time, and it was hidden. And it took a certain group of people, and the government and others didn't respond. I thought that was a powerful comparison, right? Because in many ways, veteran suicide was like our AIDS. Now we got COVID, we got other things. But talk about this death toll of first responders, and where are we now?
We're in the thousands. We've already surpassed the number of people who died on 9/11. I don't have an exact number, but I believe it's around 5,000. We have 20,000 people in the health program right now battling at least one 9/11 cancer. I think it's like 12,600 of them are first responders. The FDNY alone has pre-COVID numbers. This is because the program's been shut down. So in March, we were up to 2,800 members with at least one cancer. To put that in perspective, the second biggest fire department in the country is LA. They have 3,500 members. So, 2,800 members is a lot of people. And that's just with cancer. Most FDNY members who were there are battling, the dozens of other illnesses just like me. The official count right now for FDNY is 227 members died from a 9/11 illness. Unfortunately, we lost one on 9/11 this year. Timmy Burke, he was the last one to die. Within about an hour of the firehouse ceremony, they got the news that Timmy passed away. The national program, I'm not really privy to their numbers. I know that they're still not functioning, which is a big concern for me. The FDNY has recently started doing in-person screening again. And that's huge for us. Screening is our number one ally, as you know. These cancers happen fast, and they take you down quickly. They call them cancers on steroids. This is a drumbeat I'm going to keep drumming for anybody who was there listening. I give these two examples of people that I knew in my life. Firefighter Tommy Phelan, who is responsible for saving my life one night at a fire in Chinatown. On 9/11, he was a ferry boat captain, and he made dozens of trips back to Lower Manhattan to evacuate people. He evacuated thousands of people from Lower Manhattan, and he stayed there all day. And in the following days, he kept operating. He was also a member of the Coast Guard. Tommy was 45 years old, and I believe it was in November of 2017, he ran the New York City Marathon. And by March of the following year, he was dead from lung cancer. That is a person who was strong and healthy, and within 5 months was dead. Another one would be Sergeant Ned Thompson, 39-year-old police sergeant, had 4 young girls. This was back in 2008. He went to the doctor just before Christmas because he thought he had the flu. He had lung cancer. He was dead by March. This is what we're dealing with. It goes from a cough or just a headache or not feeling well to you have stage 4 cancer and you're dead. So when we lost the program, we don't know where we're at. We have no idea. We're still getting applications with the Ray Pfeiffer Foundation, but we're really worried about the influx we're about to get hit with once these screenings start again, because we're getting closer to the 20th anniversary, which is where we're supposed to start seeing the asbestos-related diseases. As you know, there were 400 tons of asbestos used in the construction of the World Trade Center. So how much was that in the air? All of it, right? And it was burning too. So as we get closer to that, any experts say that's really when our diseases are gonna hit a spike, which is pretty fucking scary considering how bad it is right now. Not that there's ever a good time for a pandemic, but this is the worst time for 9/11 first responders to have a pandemic and to have doctors shut down and cancer treatments delayed and all that jazz. And then not only that, but putting someone on chemotherapy at risk to go to Sloan, at risk to COVID, which would probably kill them, So, that's where we're at. We're kind of at a point where we don't know where we're at because of COVID. My hope is that maybe I'm just being a little worried, and once the numbers start coming out from the FDNY, it's not as bad as I thought. But when we lose a first responder pre-COVID every 2.5 days to a 9/11 illness, and those numbers were increasing, I can only imagine what it's going to be like now. I mean, we don't know how many we might have lost and didn't even know it. Who knows?
So you have been great, Rob, in framing this issue up. You do a lot of media. Everybody should follow you on Twitter. I, will do all I can to help elevate you, and you and I are cooking up some stuff to hopefully amplify that. But you've been great at shaping how it's not just a New York issue, right? And all 50 states have people impacted. You've talked at length about the kids at Stuyvesant High School, which you folks don't know is just a couple blocks away from Ground Zero. You got kids there coming up with cancer. But the response we saw for the first responders in COVID was heartening to me. It felt like how we got treated after 9/11 when we went below Canal Street, right? I tried to explain that feeling to people and they didn't understand. And if there's a silver lining here, it's, being in a window in an apartment with my kids, hearing people, sing New York, New York and cheer for people. And then it cascaded across the whole country and the whole world, right? And we were following the Italians who started it, whoever started it, right? But now I think there is a new appreciation again, or a reappreciation for first responders. And as we have this conversation, basically the entire West Coast is on fire. So I also wanted to talk to you now because that is happening. And I always want to have a national and a global perspective. Washington, Oregon, California hit very hard. Looks like this is going to be, the new normal, where there are serious wildfires every year or ongoing. What's your take on it? What do you want people to know about the firefighters that are out there in the shit right now and being exposed to God knows what? But what do you want them to think about and know about as they watch these fires on TV and think about the people who are running into them? Because you've been that guy running into them.
There's about 31,000 of them fighting those fires right now. I was just reading before that if you added all the fires together, it'd be bigger than the state of New Jersey. That's scary. I've never been to a forest fire. The closest we have are brush fires here on Staten Island, but it's nowhere near that intense. It's a totally different ballgame. Sorry, my technical difficulties. I might have to get Linda.
That's perfect timing that your light went out, right? So Rob's light just went out, which is good because he needs a break from the heat. If anybody does,
right?
But 31,000 of them are out there. And
which I'll take this opportunity to
he's got his Hobart College shirt on. He's taking that off to reveal, what is that, a Ranger shirt underneath? I can't see the bottom.
Yeah,
that's a cool Ranger shirt. The Statue of Liberty. All right, let's do a sidebar here.
Growing out my hockey hair too.
Yeah, you're a dedicated hockey fan. You got the FDNY hockey hat on. If folks don't know, it was when was that we did the charity hockey event for for the Piper Foundation? We had FDNY and NYPD.
It was all the way back in February.
Holy shit! In February, thanks to a lot of folks who listen to this show. Rob and others hooked up, and we had the Chicago PD and the FDNY play a charity hockey game in Staten Island. My son was there. Your son was there. They dropped the first puck. It was awesome. But I think it was a great response and something I'm really proud of that came out of this show and came out of this community. But I'm going to come. This is my warning to tell you we're coming back to hockey. But for now, let's finish up on the wildfires. What else do you think we need to know about those wildfires?
I think we need to know that it's getting late in the season out there. We're in the end of September. Most of those jobs are seasonal. A lot of them are college kids going back to school. So they're really running low on manpower, it seems. They have some plans to try to combine their efforts and form teams out of whoever's left, it seems like. But I was just reading Camp Pendleton.
Yeah.
They're sending 250 Marines.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, it seems like it's getting tougher. I can't imagine. They work 16-hour shifts for days at a time. And now they're dealing with COVID also. I think a big part of forest firefighting is the camp setup, and the morale, certainly gets boosted by, I guess, hanging out, when the shift is over, and it doesn't seem like they're doing any of that. The tent cities are smaller. They have different protocols. So I think COVID is throwing a monkey wrench into their firefighting, but it's totally different than structural firefighting. Our main, at least in New York, when we do an interior attack, our purpose is to go in and extinguish the fire. But when you're dealing with hundreds and thousands of acres, they got to do cold lines around it, or they do back burns to try to cut the fire off. They're really, you know, they're playing catch up. You know, I think we're past the point of direct extinguishment out there. You know, the fires are jumping over highways, and you know, I think they're having containment issues, and I think the fact that it's still so hot definitely would be slowing them down. I know for me, on a hot day in the summer, it was definitely harder to fight a fire and recover for the next one. So these guys and girls have to be very physically drained, you know, and hydration would be a concern. And, you know, I think that would probably slow them down. Yeah.
It's fucking hard. Yeah. I mean, it's
I can't imagine, you know, and the wind can shift. It's totally different. You know, the exterior conditions definitely affect you in a structural fire, but if you're in the middle of a forest and the wind shifts and you're surrounded by fire and you got to jump in one of those bags, I can't imagine what would be going through your mind. So it's dangerous and it's scary, and you're kind of out there on your own. And, you know, as we were saying before, we should be happy that we have 31,000 people willing to go out there and do this kind of stuff and actually, you know, put their money where their mouth is, not just sit around talking about doing things like some other people. So
well,
hopefully it cools off and hopefully the rain helps, but you know, they're in the middle of a big battle. So, and
we got hurricanes coming in right behind them, right?
Yeah.
Like one hit after another. And it's one of the areas where I feel like the president is really doing us an incredible disservice. We could be unified as a country and sending our National Guard, and the president directing the National Guard in to fight fires. And he could be leading that and driving that instead of sending the National Guard in to bust up peaceful protesters in Washington. But that's a leadership choice. And you've seen a lot of good leaders and a lot of bad leaders. You and I have both been, you know, unloading on de Blasio because I think it's warranted. I want to just give you, you know, a chance, because I think it's been politicized as well. New York is in the crosshairs again because of 9/11, but also because of de Blasio and the deterioration of the city. 1/3 of the city in Manhattan is unemployed. It in my view, is going down in a bad direction fast. I don't think that Trump obviously exaggerates everything, but Trump's attacks on the city should not take people away from the fact that there are some serious problems happening there. And I think the leadership in de Blasio is maybe one of the things we could change the fastest to make the biggest difference. But what's your take, man? I mean, again, you're in Staten Island, which gets hit hard and hit differently, but what's your take on where the city is? Because it's a reflection of where a lot of cities are.
I'm going to give you the Staten Island perspective first, because I think it's important, because I think what's happening on Staten Island and what has happened de Blasio's entire 2 terms is exactly what Trump is doing to him. You know, they get all these reports that he didn't want to help blue states, and you know, that's why he's fighting with Cuomo and de Blasio and all that. Everyone knows that. I don't have to give you that information. But that's what de Blasio does to Staten Island, because Staten Island is New York's only red borough. Staten Island has over 80 speed cameras on an island that's only 24 miles long. 80 speed. I can't drive more than 2 blocks without a speed camera. Why is that? That's some sort of retaliation? I think so. He's always withholding funds, you know, whether it's for the shoring up our seawall or even nonsense things like over the summer there's a city program to open fire hydrants and have sprinklers all around the city, you know, except on Staten Island. It didn't meet the criteria. And what is that? So you're doing the same nonsense that you're blaming Trump for. Because 80% of the people here don't vote don't vote Democrat. That's why you're doing it. You know, what about the 20% who do? They go kick rock. Should it even fucking matter? No. So I think, you know, it's comical when I see him tweeting about the president and doing all this, because you do the same exact bullshit in your own city, and just admit it. It's because it's 500,000 votes. So what does he give a shit? You know, that's if the people, I'm gonna have to go lightless for a little while. Sorry.
Okay, go for it.
But it's 500,000 votes. If people show up to vote, because I think only 700,000 in the whole city voted in the last election. So how many votes does he give it up? Basically none, because most of them aren't going to vote for him anyway. So he just gives up on this on the borough as a whole, besides killing our groundhog.
For people who don't know, Groundhog Day a couple years back, de Blasio is so detested by everyone. It includes groundhogs. The groundhog, I think he dropped the groundhog. Groundhog jumped out of his arms, right, and landed on its head and died. Is that what happened?
Yeah, well, smart groundhog, but yeah.
Yeah, and we joke, but I mean, I think the part that you're nailing that I've been trying to elevate, and if you're listening from a place that's not near New York City, you're like, why does this matter? Well, I think it matters because in the same way New York City was the epicenter for the attacks on 9/11, New York City was the epicenter for COVID. And in the same way, in my view, leadership failures happened after 9/11 that resulted in trauma and loss and weakness for America. The same thing is happening, cascading out of New York City. I think the only leader that's worse than de Blasio is Trump, but de Blasio is terrible, and he's failing, and he's more like Trump than people realize. And he's arrogant, he's disconnected, he's spiteful, he's petty, and he's weak and incompetent. And I think maybe the last part is what should concern us the most, whether it's a pandemic or a terrorist response. You need competency, you need effectiveness, you need to be able to get shit done. And this dude can't get anything done, and he seems to always say the wrong thing. So, we laugh about the groundhog and things like that, but I've never seen a leader in a place that I live that is so universally detested outside of Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein is the only leader I've seen that was more hated by the people in the area he reigned over than Bill de Blasio. And Bill de Blasio, in my view, in New York City, the hate for him is more widespread than even for Trump. Because Trump's got some people who like him. De Blasio doesn't have anybody left who likes him.
No,
and
I think de Blasio could hold a party for all his supporters and still be within the COVID limits of 25 people in a room. That's what I think.
So quickly, and the largest city, I think we hit on it, but anything you want to add on your take on where the city is now?
We're back. There's a sign. The light came back on.
The light's going on off because the heat coming off you is so intense, it's blowing out the lights.
I know. As Hank Azaria would say, it's my Guatemalanes. That's a birdcage reference if you don't know. I don't know, man. I haven't been to Manhattan. I talked to my brother Andy. He's he lives there. He's a captain in Soho on the fire department, and he says there's really not many residents left in Soho. Not many stores left either after the looting. So I think the reports of people leaving the city are probably more true than city lovers want to admit. I think the crime and the quality of life things, I'm seeing pictures and I'm getting texts, on my GroupMes, and it's not really painting a pretty picture. It's kind of looking like it did in the 80s.
Yep. Yep.
So,
and it impacts everybody because tourism's gone, right? Like, so if you think, shit, I don't care about New York, think about the tourism and how much of a draw that is for the country. Broadway's still down. Madison Square Garden's still down. Every concert is still down. Maybe Saturday Night Live is going to start to limp back to life, but so many epicenters of business and culture are down. And if you think to yourself, I don't care about New York, I think you should, because it impacts everybody. And we're seeing similar challenges in other places like San Francisco and Miami. And as usual, it maybe is a canary in the coal mine for what is to come. Let me shift gears with you, Rob. And you've been really patient with your time and your energy. You're blowing out lights. Rapid fire. So you gave me what was angry.
Right.
Tell me quickly, because I don't think you got these questions. What's your drink of choice?
Single malt Scotch whiskey, preferably the Balvenie, Glenlivet. Not into the peaty stuff, so I keep it simple.
Do you think all firefighters drink better now since 9/11? Like they drink more high quality stuff than they used to?
Oh no, I was drinking that in college, man. I was always an aristocrat.
When somebody else is buying you drinks, when someone else is buying you drinks for a decade and a half, you tend to upgrade, right?
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
There's a lot of guys drinking Oban who used to be. There's a lot of guys drinking Oban who used to be drinking Maker's Mark, right?
Maybe. There's still a lot of guys drinking Jameson though.
That's true. All right, Rob, Serra, what was your first car?
My first car was a 1988 Nissan Pathfinder. I went away to high school, man. I had to drive a truck full of all my stuff. So when I finally got a car and I could drive myself to and from school. I had to have something useful. But you'll be happy to know that once I graduated, I traded my brother my Pathfinder for his '88 Mustang 5.0 convertible. So I'd like to go with that as my first car.
All right, so, but we can give you an alibi on that one. But the first one, the Pathfinder, what color was your awesome Pathfinder?
It was metallic red.
That's not a factory color, right?
It was, yeah. It was like, it had a little hint to it. It wasn't quite fire truck red, but it was close.
Ah, and then the 5.0, the Mustang? It
was black.
Black. Was it hard top?
Soft top.
And the top was black too?
Yeah.
And it was at what year? 80?
88.
That's kind of like the terrible time for Mustangs, right? Weren't the 80s like really kind of terrible for Mustangs? In my view, I don't know what you think.
As far as
went through some tough times.
As far as aesthetics, yes, but as far as racing, the Fox body Mustangs still do pretty good. So
there you go.
All
right, tell me this, because I will admit that I am a massive sports fan. I'm trying to keep up, but I'm doing a shitty job. What do you think we need to know about hockey right now? If people aren't tracking the hockey, you're a hockey junkie. I hope everyone will support the FDNY hockey team. We're going to do some events when we're able to do events again, and when we're able to get it on again. We were supposed to do it in March at Madison Square Garden, but Righteous Media and I and our entire network are going to do all we can to support the FDNY hockey team and the NYPD when they do reunite for a clash. They also clash in boxing and football and everything else, and a lot of other first responder teams around the country do this as well. But big picture hockey, what do you think? What's your take on hockey right now, and what the the casual watcher or fan needs to know about?
I mean, it's weird that these playoffs aren't getting as much juice as they should be, especially with a New York team doing so well, even though it's the wrong team.
The Islanders.
The Islanders, yeah. I mean, I'd love to root against them, but Ray was such a big Islanders fan. I got a soft spot in there. But with Dallas playing a good team game, I don't know how much you know about hockey, but Dallas has, they're kind of like the lunch pail team. They have some good stars and a good goalie, but they're pretty deep. And the Islanders are kind of similar, so I think that would be a good series if they could pull it out. But Tampa is just stacked. Tampa has they got the snipers, they got the guys who can do the Kucherov and Point. You don't know these names, but those guys are unbelievably talented. They're due, if you believe in due, like my grandmother used to say watching the Yankee games. Guy's 0 for 4, he's due. And with the cigarette dangling off her lip, she was amazing. She used to take me and my two brothers to Yankee Stadium by herself and argue with the scalpers because she knew the stadium better than them. One time she told a guy, he told her there were box seats behind the dugout. She took one look at him and said, "These aren't on the dugout. And if these are fake, I'm going to come back here and shoot you." My brother Andy was like 12 at the time. He grabbed me and Joey and started running. The guy was hysterical laughing. They all knew her. But anyway, that was Grandma Dot.
You got to do a whole series on Grandma Dot.
Grandma Dot was unbelievable. They used to call her the moped lady because she used to ride around Staten Island on a moped. Yeah.
What color was the moped?
I have no idea. I'd have to ask my dad. She was a tough lady. She was a baseball player herself.
Let me ask you this as a dad, because you and I like to talk about dad shit, right, and parent shit. I've had moments of sadness like we all have during the pandemic, I think. And there's a little bit of mourning, right? There's a tragedy. This is a tragedy. It's okay to admit that. And I'm going to talk it through with my therapist, and maybe others will as well. I encourage folks to find someone to talk to because there is a sadness. And one of the things that got me, man, was I never took Ryder to a Yankee game. We were waiting for the right day when we could go with his grandfathers and we could, do it right. And this was going to be the year. Because when you try to take a 2-year-old to a game, it's kind of nuts, right? But like the real first time at the Yankee game was going to be this year. And I always remember going and, being the nosebleeds. My dad would get tickets donated from Con Ed where he worked, and we'd see Reggie Jackson with binoculars, and I'd scream so loud that when I went into school the next day, I couldn't talk. But I got sad thinking, you know what? He might never go to a Yankee game, or he might not go to a Yankee game where we're in there and it's packed and the place is rocking. And that just left me a little sad. We'll adjust, we'll overcome, right? But do you think we're going to get any more Yankee games like we used to? And do you think that our kids will have that kind of experience, or what do you think? You're a sports guy. Your kids are athletes. What do you think?
I hope so. And I'm glad you brought this up because this is actually something I was thinking about last night. That's funny. Get out of my head. I'm lucky, man. I got to bring my whole family to a Ranger game, in early March, which turned out would probably be Henrik Lundqvist's last game at Madison Square Garden. So I'm happy that we got that moment in. All my kids have been to Yankee games. They love it, mostly for the popcorn and the cotton candy. But you're right. I mean, there's nothing like that experience. And that's what baseball in particular, more than other sports, has that nostalgia and that comfort, which has been there for me and my family. My wife, who worked for the Yankees, she used to record the games when she was at work so she could watch them when she came home because the Yankees were her comfort after 9/11. It's what got her through her dad dying. Her dad was a huge Mickey Mantle Yankee fan, like all our dads, right? And that's what the Yankees did for her, and that's what made her want to go work there. She left a job on Wall Street to go work for the Yankees after 9/11 just to feel better and be closer to the game. And last night I was thinking about this because Aaron Judge came back off his injury, and I was thinking about my first outing after my last neck surgery was to a Yankee game with my dad. And we sat in the front row down the right field line, and Aaron Judge, I was wearing my Firehouse hat, and he ran out onto the field and he gave me, we call it the squad nod, like the acknowledgement nod. And I thought it was pretty cool. Aaron Judge gave me a little bit of acknowledgement my first day back. And then, an inning later, he was warming up with the ball boy, and then he tossed me the ball. And I was just like, you can't beat that. I'm here with my dad. I survived this fucking surgery, and Aaron Judge, the man, recognizes me and throws me a ball. And then the Yankees came back in the ninth inning and beat the Red Sox. There's nothing like seeing that in person. My biggest game was the Aaron Boone game. I was in left field and watched that home run. You're not going to recreate that crowd. I thought the stadium was going to collapse. You're not going to get that, with tarps on the seats. I hope you're wrong, and your son will get to have those moments like I did with my crazy grandmother and my dad and my son. I think we'll get there, man. I really do. I just think it's going to take a couple of years, but I think we need that sort of stuff, especially, I love hockey, and I think it's the best sport to watch live, but there's just something about walking into Yankee Stadium. It's a feeling that you don't get walking in anywhere else.
I love it.
Sorry, Mets fans.
I love it. Let me ask you the last question here, because you got into it a little bit, but I want to give you a chance. Rob, Serra, what makes you happy?
My kids, man, they make me smile all day long. Right now, I wouldn't say it's all that makes me happy, but it's enough. They're great. They're smart. They're funny. Francesca is a wise ass, and it makes me proud every time she makes a wisecrack. I
remember. I mean, your kids
I feel it, man.
Your kids are coming for you, man. They are smart.
I appreciate
it. Yeah.
It makes me. I get a little piece of the firehouse back in my own house. So I mean, what else is there? My family, my kids. I like watching sports and stuff, and I love talking to people like you and having discussions. But at the end of the day, it just makes my happiness is based on their happiness. If they're happy and they're doing well and having fun and breaking my chops, then life, it doesn't matter. All the other stuff is nonsense. Got to focus on the micro, and hopefully people like you can figure out the macro so they have a better country to live in.
Well, one team, one fight, and you are one of my favorite people in the world. You're the only guest I've interviewed in a long time, I think ever, that my son really wanted to talk to, right? Because everybody else is kind of a chump compared to you. Like, you walk on water with my kids and with me and with our family, and I'm just honored to know you. I got a couple quick gifts coming your way. You got the Oscar Mike Angry Americans t-shirt. I know you got some of these, but I'll get you some more.
Nice.
And you got the Uncle Nearest whiskey. This one I drank a little bit of, but you're gonna get a fresh bottle of the best whiskey in America, Uncle Nearest, UncleNearest.com. And then
Nice.
I don't think you ever got the Peeps question. So
No.
this is everybody's been reading my tweets. Some crazy shit going on. Peeps
I'm
are
getting
not
nervous.
being made for Halloween. It is a sign of how crazy our country is getting. There are no Peeps for Halloween. There may be no Peeps for Christmas. They're trying to bulk up for Easter. You've all been tweeting me because you know that we talk about Peeps on this show. And Peeps still should be a fucking sponsor. They're not. But takes us to our question. Rob, Serra, as the light goes out again, yellow, blue, or pink, what color of Peeps would you choose and why?
I would just choose the yellow, man. I'm an OG. Yeah. I don't know if I ever told you this story, but my freshman year at Hobart, somehow cases of yellow Peeps ended up in the dorm. Like, I'm talking like it fell out of a truck, you know, one of those type of things. And somehow it turned into a massive Peep fight. There were millions of Peeps everywhere. It was like a food fight, but only Peeps. And my dorm, they called it the super dorm. It was actually 3 dorms combined. And it was an all-out war. Yeah, so that's, you know, the yellow Peeps are always in my mind. That was pretty fun. So
yeah, hook you up with Jason Dempsey. You guys can combine forces. He told us a story last episode about setting him on fire when he was in Afghanistan. So the Peep story, every time, I'm so glad I didn't get rid of this damn question. But I am more glad that I know you, man. You're a true American hero. I know how hard this last couple years especially has been for you and how much guts it takes to get up every day and keep fighting. And I want you to know that I love you for it and I'm grateful for it. And all of us who have been following you even before I had you on the show, but especially the folks in this community that have been listening to you since episode 2, have been rooting for you. You inspire us. We got your back. I wish you were our mayor. I wish you were our president. But until then, you will be a huge source of inspiration and a true hero, man. We love you and want to send our best to your family and to the Yanks.
yeah, and to Luke Voigt hitting bombs. Yeah, just thanks, man, and thanks to all you listeners, you know, who've become my friends on Twitter for the support that they show me, and everyone who reached out last week didn't go unnoticed, and I really appreciate it, and it really does help. So.
I don't know what to. I've started saying to people, I'm like, hey, happy 9/11. I mean, it's kind of tongue in cheek, but I'm like, fuck, I don't know what else to say anymore. So, you know, we got to try to make the most out of it if we can. And just talking to you on days like that make me happy. And you're the spirit that came out of that time. And you're the real king of fucking Staten Island. I think I don't care what they say. You're the king of Staten Island. We're going to keep banging on the drum.
I definitely have better tattoos than that guy.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right. We love you very much. Best to the family. Ladies and gentlemen, the great and powerful Rob Serra coming to Twitter and a backyard near you with his tattoos and his Grandma Dot scooter and all the Staten Island isms that you heard today. Thank you, man. We love you. Stay frosty.
All right. Love you guys. Thanks.